Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker and guest star. What would you like to go by on the internet forever?
Rafay.
Oh, he's gone with his
name.
real name. Okay, that's exciting. What we're going to be covering today is over the last couple of days, week or whatever, we have kind of went through Rafay's 2008 V-Strom 1000, which you'll see on screen now. Now, we had a few cheat codes for this video. Obviously, me having an engine that is pretty much exactly the same as this one, to get down through it, and it was pretty straightforward, honestly, for what we did. Would you like to take everyone through how much you paid for this bike originally and everything we did to it from without the cost? Just run through the...
Sure. So I got the bike from Facebook Marketplace. It was $2,800 after negotiations.
Direct from Zuckerberg. I like it.
It's your sign to buy that bike off Marketplace and keep browsing. And then I brought it down. We did the front fork rebuild. So we got new springs. We got a new rear spring. Rebuilt the front brakes and the rear brake. We did new chain and sprockets. I have a great memory. Oil filter, replaced the spark plugs, did the valve clearances. Is that it?
That's about it.
And then small stuff, wheel bearings are going to be replaced. And
which we found when we were taking off wheels.
Thank God. And new brake cable lines.
And so what mileage is on this again? 38?
Yeah, there's 38,000.
So, and this is something that, and you know, we'll do at the very end of the video, basically, on what else you could buy for the amount he has invested in this in total, basically. But it's also a kind of hey, look, you can own this for this much money. But it's also a little bit of a warning that, you know, if you don't have someone who you can go to kind of work on this stuff with, that, you know, buying a used bike, if you're not willing or capable to learn to do stuff yourself, can become very expensive, which I've been warning about for years. And sometimes I think people just don't listen. So that's partially why we're doing this. He did listen, in fairness. He was prepared to spend the money to fix it. Now he's going to have a great bike for years. So first and foremost, the V-Strom 1000 is an engine that is known to go for 100,000 miles easy. It's partially why I bought one for myself. So 38,000 miles on this bike really didn't concern me when he asked me, you know, should he maybe take the plunge and join the V-Strom crew. I think immediately I did say, you need to bring that bike down here and we'll look through it, because one thing that a lot of people do forget on these, and the V-Stroms, for whatever reason, really need to have it checked, is the valve clearances. And now the nice thing about the valve clearances, some people would argue that it's not a nice thing, but the nice thing for me is you have to do the spark plugs when you do it. On this particular bike, you have to do the coolant when you do it. And honestly, it makes it easier if you just take the forks off, so why not rebuild those? And you know, do your brakes at the same time, because the forks are off, and obviously when you have the forks off, you have the wheel off, so you can check your wheel bearings. And luckily we did, because one of his two front wheel bearings was pretty crunchy, and one of his rear wheel bearings is pretty crunchy. Actually, the rear wheel bearing is worse, and rear wheel bearings, that's a very hard thing to say together.
Yeah.
Always concerned me more because it's doing a lot more work, you know, in terms of weight and transfer and whatever else. So the main thing I wanted to do, obviously, was forks, because they get ignored far too often. The shock was just kind of a nice bonus. And honestly, I've never done resprings before, up until I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it on the Z. Well, that's a lie. I've done it on other bikes previously, but in recent times on video, the first bike I've ever done was the Z. Up till then, I'd never done one of my bikes, so just help people with their bikes. And this style was new, so that was interesting. We didn't record anything because honestly we didn't have time. Rafay obviously can't stay down for too long, and it would have taken however bad you think that was, and we'll go through that in a while. Videoing adds, like, it at least doubles the time, so it just wasn't possible this time. So we're just going to do a quick run through on what we did. So we'll get straight into the cost. You already said $2,800 for the bike purchase. The race tech stuff, and we did buy springs, rear spring adapter kits, and he also bought his fork oil from Racetech. That was $357. We did not buy the fork seals, dust seals and fluid seal, and also the bush kit. They did not come from Racetech, they came from STG, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we bought those from Sports Bike Track Gear, STG.com. I highly recommend them. I've actually spoken to Max, one of the owners, super fast on emails, and both times I've sent emails, it's been because I'm being a moron, which is kind of embarrassing, but always answers and is very professional. So that was $30 and $43. So basically all forks, shocks rebuilt for, you know, the guts of $420. For $420, that's appropriate. But that alone is something like, okay, whatever, if you were to take out the rear spring, you're saving probably $180 altogether with the adapters. You really can't ignore forks. You just can't. People do. One of your fork seals was, if it wasn't already slightly leaking, it was going to be very, very, very soon, because you could see the water line was actually all the way up the outside of the seal, which they're in the bin now, unfortunately, so I can't show you. But if it wasn't already leaking, which there's no guarantee it wasn't, weeping a little bit, it would have been leaking pretty soon, because he does pretty decent mileage. Other than that, chain and sprockets, pretty standard price these days, $248. That was for gold, of course, because that's the only chain color you should buy. If you buy a non-gold chain, then what are you doing? You know, what are you doing?
Ooh.
That is correct.
2 thumbs down.
Chain and sprockets are really easy to do, even when you headbutt the bike several times. I think it was tiredness, but this bike was beating me up at one point. Or I think it was me headbutting it, actually, more so than anything else. The bike wasn't moving, it was me. But they're very straightforward to do. I have multiple videos on doing that. I have not done a valve clearance video on the V-Stroms yet. I've already done mine once, I've done his once. I will be doing mine again soon, and I will make a video on that second run, I promise. A nice thing about the V-Strom 1000 is you do not need to pull your chain tensioners, because whoever in Suzuki did it is a kind soul, and you have chain driven gear that drives the 2 camshafts. So they're just geared camshafts, and you pull them off on both cylinder heads, and they're also really easy in relative speak to realign and get back together. There's far worse valve checks out there. There's also far better valve checks out there. You do have to pretty much disassemble most of the top end of the bike. I think the worst thing on this is probably the plastics. Yeah, the fairings are a pain in the ass.
Especially with the bars on the side.
Especially with the bars, yeah. And he does have Givy bars fitted, or Givy, or however you want to pronounce it. Unless you pronounce it the way I pronounce it, of course you were wrong. But yeah, those did add a little bit of pain. I mean, it still wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it would be a lot easier without them. I think everything else was good. We had a few surprise bolts in there, some custom sizing, but again, it has 38,000 miles, you're going to get that. We did remove some kind of non-functional, they made light, but poorly.
Ugly.
And they were hideous. So those lights are gone in the bin. I can't even imagine giving them away, and I also wouldn't, so they're in the bin. Then we also did he purchased the fork seal driver, 43mm fork seal driver, as I did not have one. So that was $54. A pair of spark plugs, that's CR8EIX, so that's the iridium, so they should be good for quite a long time. They were $26 for the pair. Oil and filter, definitely overpaid for oil. You bought that from Revzilla?
Yeah.
The thing I don't like about this, and I'm going to bring it up, is if you go with the cycle gear and you happen to be in there, which I have been because it's close to me, so if you want something on the day, they do price match against stuff online, and you can literally just Google Motul 7100, which is what he used, and they'll price match. And I think I don't like that, because just give people the best price. Yeah, that, like when he called out this number to me earlier, I was actually surprised, because like, now he did buy the Suzuki oil filter. I don't know why. High flow is fine. High flow I've never had issues with ever. But the Motul, $91, you could definitely save a little bit of money there. Brake rebuild stuff, that was all from Brake Crafters, right?
Yes.
Highly recommend Brake Crafters. I have spent lots of money with them. He has spent money with them. The kits work.
Well worth.
Oh, by the way, since this bike has gone back together, we did go up and down to Williamsburg from here, which is what, probably 400 miles round trip. Yeah. Everything checked out fine except one bolt, which I probably didn't tighten properly, but yeah, it's fine. That was $185, and that was, for the rear was seals and a brake piston, brand new, and for the front it was just seals and pads then all around. So that was 3 sets of pads, 3 sets of seals, and 1 new piston. The front pistons we did reuse, we cleaned and reused, and they were actually in good condition. And this is something I've spoken about in the past. If you buy a bike that has higher mileage and is older, generally it'll actually be in better condition for a lot of stuff than if you were to buy a V-Strom 1000 from 2008 with like 6,000 miles. I guarantee you a lot of the stuff would have been worse condition because it hasn't moved. Kind of like the CB750 when I originally bought that. That only has like 20, now it has 24,000 miles, but when I bought it at 19, and a lot of stuff was just frozen in time because it hadn't moved. You know, the more people use bikes, they tend to move pistons around, clean them a little bit, and that all does actually help. Like there was no seized bolts on this, except the timing cover, which had just been over tightened by like a full 1/8 of a turn, which, yeah, we had to replace it basically to get it off. So we didn't include that price in here, as hopefully you won't run into that issue of someone being a silly goose and over tightening stuff. Bearings for the wheels, which have not actually gotten here yet. We might do a video on the bearing replacement. They were $57. So that's a total of $1,226 in parts, which obviously brings your total bike price in at, call it $4,000. For $4,000, I dare you to go find a adventure bike that's pretty much new with a warranty for even close to that. Like even if you go for the, you know, the CF Motos and stuff, which are priced very competitively, you're still looking at more than double that. And again, you're probably going to get another 60,000 miles easy out of this particular engine and bike. One other thing this bike does have is the clutch chatter. I did actually reach out to Works today, and he's retired, so no Works clutch basket for Rafay. But again, functionally the clutch works fine. If it really does bother you, you can buy an OEM clutch basket and go from there. So overall, I suppose, $4,000, do you think that's a very good deal for this?
That was a great deal. Also, it came with Tusk aluminum panniers and an SW Motec top box.
Panniers.
Fancy.
We got a fancy, but they're panniers.
Panniers.
Panniers, boy. Yeah, and honestly, when he told me those were coming with the bike, I was like, yeah, buy it. I mean, you could sell most of this stuff and make your money back. You know what I mean? You could sell the wheels, you could sell the boxes, you could sell the mounting kits for the boxes. The forks you could sell because they're perfect condition, no bends, nothing like that. You make your and the engine. You could sell the engine, no problem. Tank is in very good condition. So, and that's the kind of thing with the used bikes as well, is especially more popular used bikes. If you had been like, oh, there's something really wrong, like you'd frame damage on your neck section of your frame, you could just sell everything else and, you know, profit. You're not losing much, especially now you've like rebuilt brakes, rebuilt forks, you know. So all that stuff does add up. But yeah, for $4,000, I'm gonna pause real quick here and actually check how much the CF Moto adventure bike costs because I'm interested. 4,000 is really good.
4,000 is really good.
I'm like, I thought it was gonna be slightly more for some reason, but yeah, no, 4,000 is really good. The CF Moto Ibex 800E, which I think is a really nice bike, is $10,299 MSRP. That's not including freight and delivery. So for something that is comparable, I should say, new, doesn't come with boxes, doesn't have the prestige of a V-Strom 1000, you are looking at way more than double after everything is said and done. And as much as I do like the Ibexes, I don't think they have the proven track record that a V-Strom 1000 does. So, I mean, you know, it's pretty good. Would you rather spend, you know, 11,000?
Absolutely not. No.
There you go. You haven't named this yet, have you?
No, not yet.
Think of a name for the V-Strom 1000. Put in the comment section below.
Something big, like a big name.
It needs to be a big name.
Yeah.
Big Bertha was my CBF 1000's name. You can't name it that. You can't take Stromboli or Stromboozles.
Yeah.
Big Bertha's a good name. I'm going to reuse it. Big Bertha 2 at some point. You can make it Big Bertha 2.
Okay. I was thinking something along the lines of Bertha. Like Bertha just insinuates big.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So the only things that obviously aren't priced is, which is a big one, tools. Because you do need, obviously, to do wheels, you need a bigger torque wrench. To do your cam caps and everything else, you do need the smaller torque wrench. Time. Do not underestimate the time. Just don't. Would you agree?
Yes.
Don't underestimate the time. Like if you're buying something like this and you need the bike 3 days later, no. Give yourself, I think if I was to do this comfortably, for all this work, I think 2 weeks of evenings and weekends, I think that would have been me like very relaxed going through all this. You know, to do it in 2.5 days of evenings, two full days of a weekend and then an evening, got everything done. So I would definitely recommend giving yourself more time than that. We also didn't price in the coolant because I had some from when I did the V-Strom. We didn't price in shims because I had some from when I did them for the V-Strom. From memory, the hot cams kit that fits these bikes was $130 or something like that. You can buy the shims singly, but that ends up much more expensive. But also, I mean, his bike needed basically the same size as my bike needed, so it might make sense to just buy them singly. Experience, not that I have much, but I had enough to get it done. I'm not a mechanic. Don't ever forget that. And obviously brake fluid, because I always have brake fluid, because I know you can't see the rest of the garage, but there's a bike here. Actually, hold on. You do a little dance there or something, Rafay, to entertain the folks while we pan around. It's a good dance. So there's the SV650 right behind him. Here's the V-Strom 1000 right there. Yeah, lovely, lovely. And if we do a little spin, we have the CB750 taken apart, the Z900RS, my V-Strom, and the Valkyrie, which is taken apart, my shoulder. So yeah, there's bikes aplenty to be had. So yeah, and it's kind of something that I've been saying for the longest time, is if you're going to buy used bikes, I think you really need to be prepared to either learn this stuff yourself. YouTube is a great resource. It's where I learned a lot of stuff. Buy your service manual. Your service manual kind of sucks, actually.
It's mid.
Yeah, for the 2008 one, you couldn't search anything, whatever else. The service manual for the 2015 was way better. Now, it also could have been the phone app, maybe.
It could have been what I was searching through, yeah.
Yeah, but I would definitely recommend buying your service manual. I would recommend buying your service manual, just because it literally tells you everything you need to do. I have one for the Z, I have one for the V-Strom, not for the CB750. You don't need one for that because it's the simplest bike ever. And the SV650 is also the simplest bike ever, so I didn't get it for those. But that'll give you all your torque specs and everything else, which are very important, especially when you're doing engine stuff. You need to follow that stuff. So, I mean, overall, you would have quite a bit of extra cash if you were buying tools, but tools are an investment. So you should always buy tools. And that brings us on to the second part of the video. How would you feel if you had bought this bike and had to pay $1,300 for parts, but also then got lumped with a bill of $2.5 for labor?
Very sad.
You wouldn't be as happy, would you, if it was $6.5 for a used bike? Now,
no.
Honestly, $6,500 out the door, everything sorted for, you know, ever. That's still a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Honestly, it really is. $6,500 for everything we've done, and you're pretty much guaranteed a reliable. Not guaranteed, obviously, never, but you're fairly sure you're going to have a very reliable bike for quite a long time. Actually, $6,500 isn't that bad, but this is something I've been trying to tell people, you know, especially it seems to be more over here in the US. America. People will buy a used bike that's clapped and think that it's, you know, they can just go ride it and then they're surprised when it breaks down. The front cylinder on this bike, I took a photo of it, I think. The exhaust valves were half of their minimum tolerance. Thankfully, nothing seems damaged. And the intake valves were all slightly too tight. The rear cylinder was actually okay, surprisingly. It was all, now they were all on the limit of the tightest they needed to be done, but the whole front cylinder was tight, over tight, and that's, you know, something that would eventually prematurely destroy an engine, which you would have been sad about.
Very sad.
And I think that was the first thing I said to you about this engine when you were buying it, wasn't it?
Exactly.
You
need
to check the valves. and you know, proof is in the pudding. We measured it. We fixed them. Everything seems fine. But that is something that, you know, people will buy a bike. I'm guilty of it in the past. If legend holds true that an engine will be fine, I just won't do it. I'll be like, it'll be fine. V-Strom 1000s will absolutely not be fine. You need to do those valve checks, and I think that's something, like I said, a lot of people ignore. When they buy a used bike and then are surprised when it melts down. Bearings are a safety thing. You have to check them. Brakes are a safety thing. His front brakes were terrible.
They were so squishy. I could pull way too much on them.
Yeah, no, they were terrible. And again, that was just a kind of an age thing. You know, it was a combination of seals breaking down, fluid breaking down, brake lines breaking down, brake pads being low. It's all a combo, but again, it's just kind of neglect. And especially when people think that they're going to sell a bike or trade a bike in, they stop doing a lot of maintenance. Same with cars, same with everything. Not saying that's what happened here. This actually is a bike that has been kept pretty well overall. Sometimes too well, because someone used the Gutentite method for a lot of bolts on this thing. All recoverable except one. But you know, that's just something you have to be aware of, is that. And also, please, for the love of God, this is something I've asked before. Do you know, actually, I'm not even going to say it. How do you feel about the amount of effort mechanics put into things now after doing stuff yourself?
It is very high, especially when there's the time constraint that you expect from a mechanic. It is a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah, like how would you feel if you gave this bike to a mechanic and you said, well, the 2-day price is 2,500, but if you want it slower, I'll give it to you in 2 months for 2,000. Which one would you pick?
Probably the faster one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And would you agree they earn their money?
They earn their money,
yeah.
Especially with the tools that are required and the expertise, especially for the valves. It's just like, that's a lot of work that goes into that. You take apart the whole bike.
Yeah, so let's stop shitting on mechanics, will we? Because honestly, I see a lot of people talking shit about mechanics for like, I saw someone complaining about a chain and sprocket change recently online on an Irish post, and they were like, how could it possibly cost 600? That's how. just the parts are 248. That's not including you have to take off the rear wheel, you have to disassemble the front, you have to break loose the front sprocket, you have to take off the front sprocket, you have to clean everything, because you have to clean everything. It was filthy.
It was gunky.
It was disgusting. They always are. You have to retorque everything, you have to realign everything, and then you have to lube everything and make sure it's good. And then not only that, if you're a mechanic, you also have your entire career based on if you've done it right. So, yeah. Do you have more respect for what mechanics do now?
I do, yeah. I was not gonna lie, I'm a little bit of a skeptic beforehand.
No, everyone is.
Yeah,
everyone is.
Yeah.
But I think that's try do stuff yourself, and then you'll be
Change
like, oh, yeah, you learn things. I think that's kind of everything we need to go through, isn't it?
I think so.
If you have any questions on this bike or any of the work we did on it, please do let us know. Oh, something else we did use for cleaning a lot of this was also an ultrasonic bath. It makes things a lot faster, especially old brake calipers. And the front brake calipers were kind of...
disgusting.
They were pretty bad. We actually thought they were a particular colour and they weren't. It was not paint that came off. It was years of dirt. But yeah, I think you know, if you have any questions at all for me or Rafay, will Rafay actually use his youthful brain to monitor YouTube comments for like the first...
Steel trap.
The first day. Will you monitor the comments first day?
First day
of release. Raphael answer some questions on his bike if you want to. But otherwise, I mean, personally, I think it's a great bike.
Great bike.
Something like this had been available when I bought my V-Strom, I probably would have bought this one, even though I do prefer the looks of my generation. Actually, fuel economy. Should we talk about fuel economy?
Yeah, I guess so.
We should
rub it in.
I do need to rub it in. So when we went up to Williamsburg and back, I had toaster on the back of my bike and my very wide boxes, and on the way up there I did 36.9 mpg and you did 34, wasn't it?
Yep, 34.
And then on the way back I did 38 mpg. We took a slower route. I did 38 mpg and you did...
It was 34?
It was 34
yeah,
again. So so you know, that's a 2015 V-Strom 1000 versus a 2008 V-Strom 1000. Now, to be fair, this thing obviously has more miles and stuff on it, so that might affect it. I do think you may have a leaky injector, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just as a comparison. That's 34 US MPG, by the way, and
America.
That was, you know, we were doing 80-ish.
The speed limit.
We were doing the speed limit on the highways, plus the allowed regulated extra. We were doing the speed limit. We were doing the speed limit. We don't even ride bikes. It's AI.
Yeah.
It's AI. You can. Please don't arrest us. But yeah, that's it. I think the most challenging thing that I didn't actually have tools for was the rear spring, because I didn't have spring compressors that fit. I only have car spring compressors over there, which I didn't even try because they're huge. And we did end up getting ones that did work in advanced auto, but I'm gonna probably buy Tusk-Do ones, and I'm probably gonna buy them because I wanted to get a fork stand anyway for like cartridge forks, because it's just easier. So more tools coming to my garage soon. And yeah, like I said, get a couple of friends, buy some of these tools, share them together. or become a psychopath like myself, buy too many bikes and work on them on your own, and then offer your services free of charge. Other than he is giving me the fork seal driver, so I did make a tool out of this deal. I think it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, he's scamming me.
Yeah, scammed. But you know, that's honestly the main thing is like get a group of friends, watch some YouTube, change your oil, start out doing that, change your chain sprockets. Honestly, it's pretty straightforward and easy, and grow from there. This stuff is not hard. It's just time and patience. Would you feel like you could take on most of what we did now?
With a lot more time, yes.
Yeah, but that's what we've been, give yourself time, patience. Yeah. You need to be slow.
But yeah, like technically it's not like super difficult.
Yeah.
It's just like the knowledge that goes into it, I feel like.
Yeah, and I mean, the more you do of it, the faster you can go.
Yeah.
Like I was very comfortable tearing this bike down to get to the valves.
Oh, it was really quick.
It's pretty much the same as my bike. It genuinely, once you get the fairings off, it's pretty much the same thing. Procedure is the same and all that. So, yeah, like I said, we'll probably do the wheel bearing video. When I do my next valve clearances, I will do them. And like I said, it's effectively the same as this bike. So you'll be able to do both generations of the V-Strom. I don't know, is the 1050 engine the same? No idea. Have no plans on owning one anytime soon. Sorry. But I would imagine it's also very, very similar. Suzuki aren't really known for doing wild sweeping changes unless it's like, you know, changing to the 800 V-Strom, which is obviously a completely different engine. But if it's the V-twin, it's probably the same thing. I'm fairly certain the 1050 is just literally slightly bigger displacement, but essentially the same hardware. So. And yeah, like I said, he got effectively, for me, this is a brand new bike out the door now for $4,000 and some time. And some obviously, you have to travel down here and everything else, so factor that in. But it's really, it's what you like. I had a great time doing this. Obviously, we got a trip out of it afterwards. Yeah. I just like working on bikes. Hopefully, you learned something.
I learned a lot.
So yeah, that's I think that's all good things. But yeah. Yeah. Any questions, leave them in the comments, like I said. If you watched, thank you very much for watching. As always, a very special thank you to all of my patrons. He's not one of them. Even after all this, he's, you know, that's, I can't. Ooh. I just realized that I'm leaving. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to be, don't be a patron. No one should be a patron, honestly. We should
highest tier.
We should cancel the patronage. But I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, thanks to all my patrons, because all of you are awesome and I haven't even fixed any of your bikes. I adjusted Hatter's gear shaft lever for him. That counts.
That counts, yeah?
Yeah, that counts.
Does it work?
Yeah, yeah. Nothing like this, though. And yeah, until next time, thanks again for watching. Adios. Outro crew. The great news is, I'm not going to ask you a question because he's right there.
What's the bike you're looking at on Marketplace?
Oh, that was quick.
Comment it down below.
Did you have that planned?
I had it planned 30 seconds before because I knew you were scheming and plotting. And then I'll tell you
I quit this job.
whether or not to buy it. And the answer is going to be yes, always.
That made a noise.
Yeah, that was pretty loud, but
that was just
she can take it.
Yeah. That was a good question.